So yeah, welcome everybody to, as I said, the first Siebel Friday of 2024. Very nice to have you. Hope you had a good start into the new year. And it's 2024, it's the last Friday of the month, and it's Siebel 24 is here. So Siebel 24 has been released on 22nd. That was generally available. So that's the official launch date of Siebel 24. And as you all know, Siebel 24.1 is just 23.13, if I may put it that. So it's a new, of course, a new year number and a new month number. So, but still we have something to talk about the new release as usual. So let's do that first. Then there's a little demo I prepared, which you might have seen already, but came up in a recent discussion. We'll talk about generative AI that has been made generally available on OCI, which is very interesting for Siebel. And also there's a discussion that comes from Brian Kelly from Oracle, who's here today. Thanks, Brian, for joining. And this will be a discussion we are putting at the end of the show, so to speak, to accommodate everybody who wants to join in there. So yeah, let's start the slideshow. So Siebel 24.1, what's in there? There's one official new release new feature for mobile application. Siebel mobile applications have this container app, and the framework to create that container app has changed now from the mobile application framework, MAF, to React Native, to more open source framework. There's news for Siebel Cloud Manager. There's news for people who read log files. There's news for people who use the migration application services. There's news for people who use the REST API. And Tomcat update is actually the same. There's no new Tomcat in 24.1 if you compare it to the previous version, 23.12, which was the last time it changed its number. So those mobile applications, and have to be very specific here. People expect sometimes to hear about, okay, Siebel on the phone, there's an app to run Siebel on the phone. There's an app to run Siebel mobile applications on the phone. Mobile applications is that special family of applications which has been created by Oracle, such as sales mobile, consumer goods. There are 6 different applications, and they have been especially formatted, let's call it that, to run better on iPad-sized devices and phone-sized devices since the introduction of the smartphone UX framework, if you will, back in 20.9, I think that was. And there's a container app that facilitates the deployment of these mobile applications. There's still web applications running in a browser. The mobile application, or the container app for Android and iOS, is more or less a web container, an in-app browser, if you will, that displays the Siebel web application. But so Oracle changed the framework to write that in that container app. Previously, mobile application framework was used, and now in 24.1 and higher, it's being replaced by React Native. React Native actually comes from Meta, also known as Facebook. And they have put it open source a long time ago, and it's a very common framework. It allows you to write JavaScript applications that can then be compiled into Android or iOS or other Electron, for example, apps. So that's the choice that Oracle made. I think the reason for mobile application framework, which is an Oracle product, to go down is that it's being deprecated or no longer really getting any updates. Not sure how to read the information from Oracle on that, but that's, I think, might be the reason. And
you're correct, Alex.
Okay, yeah, thanks,
Yeah, we're
Brian.
basically Oracle's deprecating that product, so we had to move to something else. And I don't know their reasons for that. I have nothing to do with that team, but fundamentally, we had to replace it with something else, and we chose React Native as it is. Build once, deploy everywhere,
yeah.
kind of a thing.
Yeah, makes sense, and it's also the source code, as I understand it, for that container app, for the Siebel container app, is included in the monthly updates as a patch. So you can, if you want to modify that app or use it to create your own version of the Siebel container app, you can download that source code and then compile it yourself. That container app, though, is nothing that's required to run Siebel on a phone. You can just open the browser on your phone, navigate to, the Siebel URL, log in, and whatever the browser can do with whatever it gets delivered will be seen on the phone. However, the container app makes that deployment easier. For example, many customers that I've worked with Siebel mobile that use Siebel mobile applications want to manage the deployment of Siebel on the phone. So basically, by deploying the app, there's Siebel. The users don't really know that they could connect to a URL. So you can use things like AirWatch to coordinate that deployment. There's, of course, higher security, extensibility, of course, because it can modify the source code. And also it has better supports than the native Chrome browser on Android, for example, or Safari on iPhone for attachment handling and offline mode, the disconnected mode of those mobile applications. So I looked it up just today on Google Play and also on Apple App Store. There's the new version is out there, so you can download it. You can download the Oracle compiled version of that and use it. Okay.
Right. Alex, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
I think that's implied because of the AirWatch thing, but well, actually, two things I wanted to mention about this feature. One is you could also put it on your own app store, like if you have an internal one where you're pushing out profiles that allow people to do it. So you can do it with AirWatch, or it could be anything. But yeah, it doesn't have to come from the official stores. Mm-hmm. The second thing is if you have a working app that was using MAF, it should be completely transparent, other than you would need to replace it with the new version on your internal app stores and whatever. We'll obviously take care of keeping the one on the public stores up to date, but in terms of the actual functionality and so forth, it should be largely transparent to customers. You're not going to have to reconfigure any applets or anything like that. It's going to still handle all that stuff without any change. And I think that was a very good, maybe cost us a few months in terms of releasing this, but ultimately is the right decision. It'll be much better for anyone who's using this to have to make no changes to the repository or configuration or script files, etc. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Brian, for clarifying that, and also thanks for joining today. There are some screenshots. The first screenshot here really shows, it kind of shows that the Redwood-ish theming has been adopted by the app itself, and of course, if you run smartphone UX, the Redwood-ish theme of smartphone UX is, of course, what you see. Sorry. Okay, sorry for that. So the next thing that is included in 24.1 is actually on the Cloud Manager, which we also monitor on the Siebel Hub and have some training out there. Siebel Cloud Manager 24.1 and higher includes a new API call, which is actually quite self-explaining. It's called SFS Cleanup. You all know what this is. So it is a call, so you don't have to get into the container and call it manually from the command lines. You can call it from the REST API of Cloud Manager. So this is now documented in the respective bookshelf guide. Nice addition, I'd say, to Cloud Manager. Then also very minor change, but for some people it was quite triggering to see these lines in the log files, where the workspace and workspace version, repository version, and application version were reported. You might have seen them popping up in recent Siebel versions, but they were reported under an error category, object manager error. And that triggered a lot of people, a lot of admins, because it's not an error, obviously, it's just information. And that's what it is now. So I think it has been in place for a few releases back, but now it's documented in Bookshelf. Object manager generic info is the type. And that, of course, is much better than having an error, which is not an error. Okay. Then the migration schema service, that's one of those business services that does the heavy lifting in the migration application. You know, it's the migration application uses or calls those business services. It orchestrates these calls. It's documented in the upgrade guide how to call these business services manually using REST API or any other means. And for the import in the schema service, one parameter is very important, is actually, or two, the username and password for the user who has permissions to modify the schema. It's typically the table owner or schema owner. And that schema owner password can be encrypted for a few versions now with the encrypt string utility. So it's a real encryption. You cannot get the password back out of the encrypted string. Or it could be encoded with base64. So encoding is, of course, you can decode it quite easily. And the password is just a little bit better than clear text. And now the documentation clarifies that you can either encrypt it or encode it, but not both at the same time. And if you have encrypted it, you must also send the respective parameter, password pre-encrypted, set to true, or set to false if it's just base64 encoded. So that has been now clarified in documentation. It's really good for people who call these business services manually or using their own orchestration.
Alex, again, if I may, I want to make sure it's clear to everyone that all of our network traffic is secured, with TLS, right? So, base64 encoding it applies to things before it's been encrypted by the actual, network stack. And so the real concern here was really the end user, the person running, the product could, whatever, a man in the middle attack type of scenario is that if somebody did have Fiddler installed or whatever, they could get the message, then they could just base64 decode the password. And some customers raised concerns about that. But realistically, the whole thing is encrypted anyway. But where this is, I think, really important is for scenarios where you have a customer or partner who's your DBA, who is distinct from your sort of Siebel people. And your DBA manages the database and the schema and doesn't want to give you the table owner password.
Right.
They have to do all their changes. And so this would allow that DBA to run encrypt string against the real password and then give you the encrypted string. So you'd be able to run migration, but you couldn't log directly into the database as a table owner and do anything with that.
Yeah,
so anyway,
makes
that's
perfect sense.
the reason for this. It's really just about segregating the rights of the DBA versus the Siebel folks is where this is most helpful to me.
Okay, thanks much, Brian.
Also, Alex, we did have customers who were base64 encoding and then encrypting it as well, and vice versa, encrypting and then base64 encoding. So it wouldn't be able to be decoded on the server side. So this clarifies, don't do both.
Right. It reads that way, that somebody tried to encode an encrypted password and got into trouble, of course. Yeah.
Because we don't know what order they did it in.
Yeah. Okay. So it makes perfect sense. And thanks, Brian and Kerry, for explaining, for clarifying here. And there's a minor change that affects me personally in a project. So I put it here, is that in the REST API for data, you can have a lot of parameters, and one of them is page size, obviously to define the number of records being returned. So that works fine if you're on the primary. And until 24.1, it didn't really affect the child or grandchild or anything down the primary on a lower level, like the contacts for an account. So now in 24.1, that's resolved. I think it was a bug or categorized as a bug. So now that page size gets through to the child business components. For example, contact for a given account, you just get 20 and not, let's say, as many as are there. If it would be 100, you see your 100 contacts in a version earlier than 24.1. So that is a good addition. There's also a new, I found in the response, I found a new field saying last page false or true, which is also nice for any pagination that you have to do. So yeah, that's also a good thing to know about Siebel 24.1, and I think that's it. We're not talking about this one. So yeah, any questions you might have, any feedback to the latest Siebel version? Anything worth mentioning here, putting on the record? All right. Yeah, as usual, you find on the Siebel Hub YouTube channels, we have those monthly update videos, which a lot of you are watching, I know, and there's this similar information there, but always good to put that first in our Siebel Fridays. So now let me just check my notes. Yeah, the devpops lizard. So that was brought up by a friend recently. They were asking about an issue in Siebel. It's an ongoing issue, really. It's something that people find and don't understand why it's happening. So, for example, here you're looking at a list applet, which when it comes out of the oven, really, of the let's say you created that list applet and you opened it the first time, every column has the same width. And the column doesn't really care about whether you have long text in there or not. Or let me go to that administration product page where, for example, the description is quite long. Of course, I can manually adjust the width and it's saved in my user preferences, and that's fine. But if it's a big list applet with a lot of columns, it could be tedious, and some users don't even want to bother with doing this drag and drop gesture. So I came up a while ago with a solution that I included in devpops. So just to, well, say devpops a few times in here. If you're new to devpops, which I don't think you are, but let me just go to the page and put it in the chat for you as a reminder. devpops is an open source, strictly educational collection of useful stuff you can do with OpenUI, aimed at developers, but not necessarily. As I have to always mention that it's educational only, and you should not use any of the code in any of your mission critical environments. So you can get it from there, and the latest versions have this side menu, and there in the demo section, you have the lizard, the list applet wizard, which if I click it, see what happens with the list applet. It reads the content of the applet, only can read the current records, of course, and has a maximum width, obviously, and then adjusts the width to a natural size for all the columns that are currently visible. So I demonstrated this a few months ago, and as you can see, it makes the applet a lot more useful. Let's go back to those sales orders, maybe. Let's try the lizard here. It only works on list applets, of course. And yeah, does the trick here. So there are fewer columns here for my screen width, so it gives them more space. Yeah, that's what it does. There's a little twist to it. Let's see if I have. Yeah, I have a workspace which is writable here. So let me just open that workspace. And in case you have a writable workspace that you're inspecting and you run the lizard, then because the workspace is writable, you see the calculated numbers for the column width. You can increase them, say order ID, oh, it's way too big, let's make 100. You can preview that. Revision. Okay, so you can preview that and then you can save it to the workspace. It's using the REST API for workspaces. So it gets your credentials for the developer. And then, not sure if it still works, but it should get, yeah, it should get green background for any value that is successfully written to that workspace. So the applet has now been modified. So those values are the HTML width of the column and are now preserved. So instead of manually modifying that in Siebel tools or web tools, that's maybe a cool thing. So I demonstrated that lizard a lot of times and many customers liked it and maybe adopted it. I'm not sure about this, and yeah, I would like to start a discussion or some feedback on that. Or if you're using it in your situation already, that would be nice to know.
That's pretty cool.
Okay. Jason says on the chat, incredible feature. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, Alex, I like that a lot. Do you happen to have anything you've written for form applets?
Well, form applets is a challenge. I have something. I have something for form applets. Yes, which is the break free demo. So watch that form applet on the bottom. Mm-hmm. It break free means it breaks free from the table, HTML table, into a CSS grid, or it could be CSS Flex if you want to. So now the form applet is free to follow the browser if you resize it. Yeah. So here you see it's responsive now.
Yeah. And what does your edit layout button do?
Okay, thanks for that. So edit layout, well, lets you edit the layout in your application, which means you can adjust the width of fields. You can drag fields around. I'm sure I showed that before. You can change the CSS.
Oh my goodness.
Just reload that and enable it again.
Alex, can you also add new fields?
That would be the icing on the cake to add a new field here, but issues with the Workspace API prevented me from doing that. I would have to try maybe in the new version. Maybe that's an issue that's been fixed. I remember demonstrating it to Carrie and Brian, and also in previous Siebel Fridays. It's good. Thanks, Jason, for reminding everybody that it's here. Ready to showcase when you have devpops installed. You can apply it to your applets. Let's do it on a really big applet. The one that is in the more info. It's already applying. The more info in opportunities, which has sections, and those sections are also translated into accordions for form applets. Yeah. Let me just maybe turn it off and see what it looks like when it comes out of the box. Yeah, that's what it looks like out of the box. I would say there's improvement there when you.
Yes, it is.
When you deliberate your form applets. And ongoing discussion, so that HTML table that gets generated is really a very strict confinement for those fields, right? And if you release them from these confinements, and they can be more responsive and easily resizable, and yeah, as I showed here. Okay, yeah, thanks. That's also something.
Alex, quick question. I'm just getting to know. I'm seeing this one for the first time. Mm-hmm. So are you saying that this is for developers or this is for end users? That the applet that you see on the left side when you click on the rocket sign, is
that's
that
Anyone who has workspace permissions, I think, right?
well, the little rocket button is actually something that the devpops library creates. Once you download it, it's an open source JavaScript collection that we've built over the years in the Siebel community, and has a lot of features. And that's just a menu that pops up to use those features. Yeah.
So that's available for any end user? Any
if you would deploy it like that, any end user could use it, but I would strongly discourage that.
Is it-
Yeah, but it's possible. It's possible,
Yeah.
provided
Yes, it's an open
tested
UI
and,
extension,
yeah,
if you
okay.
will. Yeah.
Okay,
now
Alex, this is
some of the
can I-
things though are, you said that you need to have the workspace for the developer available, correct?
To save to the workspace, yeah.
To save back to the workspace,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Got it.
But yeah, okay.
Thank you. Nice. Both of these ones are, that accordion one, is it possible to collapse or expand all of them in one shot?
Yeah, of course, that would be just another button to add and some JavaScript to.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Yeah.
Is this deployed directly to the browser, or is it something you deploy on the server side?
It has some server-side business services which you need to deploy.
Okay.
Okay. But most of the stuff is JavaScript in the browser. Yeah.
And where's that JavaScript coming from? Is it an extension, or is it
it's
coming from the Siebel server or the AI?
You load it in the manifest like a post load file.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how it works. It's a post load event listener. That
I'm just worried about potential security issues of an end user being able to do something with this thing that would be that they probably shouldn't be allowed to do.
It's definitely not. It's definitely. Let me go back here. Let me go back here. So it's educational. So if you want to learn how to do stuff in OpenUI, how to do crazy stuff in OpenUI, how to use the Siebel REST API.
I understand that, but I'm saying what stops some bank teller from downloading this from this page and doing something where they funnel money to their own account or something? Like, are there any things that like you could do without a server side cooperation?
No, actually, because most of the functionality relies on importing a business service into Siebel.
And I'm just asking, and if there is, then we would have to fix that as a security hole. I'm not saying I don't upset with you about the possibility. Just saying we need to be thinking about, if this could inadvertently be used or non-intentionally used by someone
you
as
really
an attack vector.
You must create a workspace in dev and import some stuff for it to work. So definitely not just upload the JavaScript.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
I would never give the end user this capability ever.
Well, no, of course not. I'm asking if an end user could give it to themselves.
I mean, this is a nice one. I'm just clicking here the X-ray, which business analysts love to see the table names, column names instead of the label for each field. This is something I had created 10 years ago, and then it ended up as a demo here in the X-ray demo. Yeah, but I think seeing that I've demoed it a while ago and definitely in Siebel Fridays, but maybe the last time was a year ago. I think next Siebel Friday we have a devpops dedicated Siebel Friday to show you all the nice things, remind you of all the nice things, and of course feedback is always welcome. Things that you might want to see in devpops. So you have developed some stuff. Devpops is an open source project. There's a question from Samuel in the chat. Does the form applet alignment feature update the DOM on the fly or change the web template in the repository? It's actually DOM on the fly. So it's because the updating the web template would be require a workspace, etc. Since it's not, it's just on the fly. Yeah. Okay, so thanks for this. nice way. Then I wanted to share maybe you found that. Juris also sends me a message in the chat already that, yeah, generative AI, the announcement was mentioning back in Oracle Cloud World, a collaboration with Cohere. And the generative AI service is now generally available a few days ago on Oracle Cloud. So the large language model from Cohere and Meta Llama, you pronounce it Llama or Llama, the animal.
Llama, Alex. Llama 2.
Llama, yeah. In South America would definitely be Llama, but yeah. So that's the Llama 2 or Llama 2 is included as well as a predefined model. So you can choose predefined models. You can create your own models, fine tune those models, and have a generative AI for enterprise quality, let's say, with regards to, you know, where it runs. You can have your own training machines. You can have your own training data, and you don't have to upload your, let's say, Siebel data to OpenAI's ChatGPT or whatever. So Juris is here, and Juris is the mastermind behind that incredible demo we have seen last year, where you were not using OCI, but a different vendor, but you had that incredible demo with showing a service agent interaction by email, creating translated emails, etc. Let me just quickly find the page so we can talk about this here a little bit more detail. Yeah, there we are. So yeah, that's the web page. That's the documentation page for that I was just browsing before we started. So all the beta messages have been removed and it's now GA. It's currently only available in the Chicago region. My guess is that that will change quickly and expand to more regions. Anybody had any first experience with that? Maybe with the beta? No? Sounds like no one has given it a try yet. Okay. I'm planning on extending the training for Siebel OCI that we have on the Siebel Hub. So speaking of the Siebel Hub, we have the new features training up. So new features replaces the workshop. So some of you might have heard about the Siebel 23 Plus workshop or Siebel 22 workshop. We now removed the year number. And we call it Siebel New Features, and we have split it into 3 parts. So for architects and administrators, for developers, and also for application integrators. And application integrator has a chapter on OCI AI services, which is current and includes a reference to the generative AI service from Oracle. But of course, at the time of writing the video material recording, it was not yet GA, so expect some updates here on this course module, which means that when you take that course module today, you get a 1-year subscription, and within that 1 year, of course, the always up-to-date guarantee of the Siebel Hub will make sure that you have the most recent information when it becomes available or shortly after that. Okay, so just letting you know a bit of news about the new Siebel training we have. So again, we have that new Siebel features, or Siebel New Features training, the split version of the workshop. We have a Siebel scripting. yes, really. We have a course on that now live, and very proud to have a course on Siebel reports with Oracle Analytics Publisher, so the latest version of BI Publisher or XML Publisher as it was known before that. So there are 2 new courses there for your teams or for yourself to check out on the Siebel Hub. As always, drop me a note if you want to know more about the training opportunities with the Siebel Hub. So that was the shameless plug I do every time.